this?
Mm-hmm.
This always fits. Ow. Dude, one time I was using my mom's and she wouldn't let me use makeup because I am Mormon. Anyways, she wouldn't let me use makeup and I was using one of these. I put it on my eye and I was curling my eyelash. And all of a sudden I pulled it away and it ripped out like 10 of my eyelashes.
Oh my god. Well, because you ripped it away.
How are we going to do a lash lift if I'm scared the whole time?
I know, you're going to have to buck up.
That looks so cute.
You look adorable.
I look like a little German boy. Hi guys.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
My name is Celeste.
My name is Kathy.
And today, Kathy's going to be telling me a wild story.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's get into it. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Grab yourself a drink, grab yourself a snack, and Kathy, take it away.
The intro music.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh no, the intro already happened.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Hey y'all.
Hi.
Today I'm going to be telling you guys about the reincarnation stories studied by Dr. Jim Tucker. Mm-hmm. And can I just say that a lot of people believe in reincarnation? Mm-hmm. A lot of people. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's found in various religions. It's found in some forms of Hinduism and Buddhism. It's also found in some forms of Judaism. Some indigenous groups believe in it, pagan groups. The ancient Greeks like Socrates and Plato's, they wrote about it, talked about it, lived it.
Socrates is in my game.
Oh, is he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, that's cool. She's playing Assassin's Creed.
Odyssey.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating, really, to think about the idea of it, you know? It's like, how would we ever actually really know if reincarnation is a thing? Yeah. I guess we would find out when we die, and that's about it. Yeah. I guess. But it's still interesting to talk about and to hear about the stories of people that say they got reincarnated.
Yeah.
Well, there are countless stories out there of people that say they were reincarnated. Today I want to focus on the studies of Dr. Jim Tucker and his research unit. Okay. Because they take like a scientific approach to studying reincarnation. And this is a picture of him. Good old Jim. I don't know why I said that. He's a doctor.
Good old Jim. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jim. Dr. Jim Tucker is the director of the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia. He's been published several times. He has given many lectures and presentations, 43 to be exact, I counted.
Oh, wow.
And he's written 3 books about the subject. Like, this is his life, you know?
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And he also sounds like a super chill guy. Like, I listened to him on podcasts. I watched a lot of his lectures and presentations. Mm-hmm. And he's really knowledgeable, but he doesn't seem like, I don't know, like pretentious,
like douchey about it.
Yeah, he seems cool. Down to earth. Yeah, which is I like him. So now I want to talk about his research unit. The Division of Perceptual Studies, or DOPS for short, is a research unit at the Psychiatry and Neurobehavioral Sciences of the University of Virginia School of Medicine. And it was founded in 1967 by Dr. Ian Stevenson, who was born on, get this, October 31st, 1918. Oh. And he passed on February 8th, 2007. And he was a really interesting guy. And this is a picture of him in the 1970s. Ian came to the university to be the chairman of the Department of Psychiatry in 1957. He was successful, he was in his late 30s, and when he interviewed with the board, he mentioned to them that he was interested in parapsychology, and they were like, okay, cool. They didn't really think much of it at the time. And a couple years after that, he wrote a paper about people describing their past lives. And after it was published, he started hearing all these stories about people, about kids that claimed to remember past lives, and he was super into it, and he was like, you know what, I'm going to study this. So he went on to spend the next 40 years of his life studying this subject. Oh. And he studied a bunch of different cases. He wrote a bunch of journals and academic papers. He collected so much data. He was in countless documentaries and like interviews and presentations and stuff. Like he was doing it up until he was pretty old. Like I'll show you a clip of a documentary he was in, and like he's pretty old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, super
That's
cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. Some people kind of gave him the side eye, and they were like, I don't know if this is serious. And they didn't really take him seriously, but he kept on doing it anyway.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah. he was a real king. One of his criticisms was that he's the only one finding these cases, like it has to be fake. And so what he did is he went out and he found scientists, anthropologists, child psychologists. Jim Tucker is a child psychologist, like that's how he started, as a child psychologist. So he found all these people to be part of his research group. And that's how he created the division DOPS, to conduct research using scientific methodology to investigate things that can't be explained by the current scientific assumptions and theories about the consciousness and the mind.
Whoa, that's so cool.
I know. Some examples of the phenomena that DOPS studies include telepathy, deathbed visions, poltergeists, near-death experiences, and children's memories of previous lives.
Wow.
The researchers are dedicated to the use of scientific methodology in their investigations. They believe science should adapt to studying these genuine spiritual experiences without the loss of scientific integrity, which it's like, that's so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And eventually, after 30 years, Ian retired and Jim became the director of DOPS.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah. And this is Ian a little bit older.
Oh, that's so cool.
And here is a little clip of him talking.
Well, my conclusion so far is that for the strongest cases, reincarnation is the best, but not the only explanation. We don't have any perfect case. They all have some flaw. And so I've never claimed we have anything like a proof of reincarnation. But I do believe that reincarnation should be taken seriously as a possible explanation.
Wow. The spooky music.
I know.
Duh.
Ian kept researching even after he retired. This was his whole entire life. He kept working up until pretty close to the end, and he published his final paper that was a review of his life's work, and he finished the paper with these words: "Let no one think that I know the answer. I am still seeking."
Wow, I love that.
I know.
Oh my god.
So, as of 2017, DOPS had more than 2,500 reported cases of reincarnation.
Wow.
And these cases were more commonly found in cultures with a belief in reincarnation. So, the majority of stories were found in India, Sri Lanka, Turkey, Lebanon, Thailand, and Myanmar.
Wow.
Yeah. They also found cases in the West. It was a little harder to find them, but it could be because parents either didn't want to talk publicly about their kids having these stories, or they simply didn't believe the kids because it's not really a part of the culture in the West, you know?
Yeah.
We've heard of past life regressions. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen those meditations where it's like, remember your past life.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like either self-induced or somebody walks you through it. That is not one of the methods that DOPS uses.
Oh.
Yeah, just so you know.
They're like,
I'm not gonna hypnotize you into telling me the story. And all the stuff that I'm gonna talk about, like all the research stuff, it's based on these 2,500 cases. And so it's just facts pertaining to this specifically.
Okay.
So typically cases involve super young children who start to tell stories of reincarnation. And the average age of when they start talking about their past life is 2 or 3 years old.
Oh, wow.
I know. Can
That's
you imagine?
so young.
It's so young. Some kids talk about their past lives in a detached, casual way, and other ones have a really strong emotional involvement to their stories. Some will beg and cry to their parents to like take them to their real mom and dad, like to their home. And so it can be really emotionally taxing to the kids and to the parents as well. When you have like a little 2-3-year-old telling you, "You're not my real mom and dad, I just want to go home," you know? Like, that's intense for all parties. Sometimes if they meet the previous family, they will exhibit behaviors that match the previous life. So, like, treating the parents of the previous person as their parents, or the spouse as such, or the young siblings as such. So it's like you'll have a little kid talking to this adult, treating them like they're, you know, like, "I'm your older brother," you know? Like... Which is kind of cute.
Wow, that's so cute.
I know. The emotions usually fade after time, but not always. Usually, though.
Wow.
Some of the children will show a lot of anger, especially if the person was killed. With more intense cases, the children will have a lot of strong emotions when talking about past lives. But even then, like, they'll say something intense and then they'll run off and go play. Like, they're still kids, you know?
Yeah.
And some kids have access to that information at all times. Like, if you ask them, you know, XYZ, what did you work? Or, you know, where did you work? Or what did you do? They'll immediately have access to it.
Wow.
And other kids, they don't. They'll have to be in a really relaxed setting. Maybe it's a long car ride or after a bath, just something that really relaxes them. That's the only time when they're able to access that information.
Wow.
And 35% of children with reincarnation stories have phobias related to their death and in their previous lives. There was a little girl that Jim was talking about where in her previous life she drowned, and so she was deathly afraid of water. So she never wanted to take a bath, and her parents had the hardest time. Like, it took like 3 people just to give her like a quick bath. Like, she was so terrified of water.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And the children's likes and dislikes will often match the previous person's, like either food or like addictive substances. So like if the previous person was a huge smoker or a huge drinker, the kid will try to like sneak some smokes or like beg their parents to, you know, to give them alcohol and stuff like that. And the parents are like, I'm not going to give you freaking alcohol. You're
2.
Yeah. And in some cases of children remembering past lives of the opposite sex, 80% of them showed gender nonconformity. Which, like, what is gender? You know, it's like what?
Just or gender fluidity.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And most of these behaviors fade as the children get older, but some of them exhibit those behaviors up until adulthood.
Wow.
So that shows that not only facts of the previous life survive, but also emotions and behaviors and, like, identities, you know?
Yeah.
And by the time they're, like, 6 or 7, they usually stop talking about it and they just go on with their lives. Most of them seem to lose their memories of the past lives, but there are definitely some that even as adults, they still have some memories. But most of them, like, stop talking about it.
Yeah.
And typically, children that report their past lives have regular childhoods, like, aside from the fact that they remember having a previous life. Most of the previous lives they talk about are pretty ordinary, recent lives. They don't really have stories about being rock stars or royalty or anything like that. There are a couple exceptions, but most of them are just, like, regular old Joes that died that live in the same, or lived in the same country.
Oh my gosh.
Typically, the average time between the death of the person, of the previous person, and the birth of the child is 4.5 years. So it's pretty recent, but there are some exceptions.
Wow.
And as far as what they say about these past lives, they tend to talk about the end of their past life, and 75% of them will describe remembering how they died in their past life. Kind of like the memory is just picking up where it left off. You know, like I remember dying and now I remember kind of like that. About 20% will talk about memories of events between lives. So after the previous person died and before the child was born.
Whoa.
So some of them describe staying either near where the person used to live or where their family lives. And some even remember the funeral of the previous person.
Whoa.
Which I'm like, I know. Some of the kids talk about going to other realms or going to heaven. Some American kids use the word heaven. They talk about either choosing their next parents or being led to their next parents and from there starting their new life.
Wow.
Yeah. Some of them say they are relatives that have passed, but many of them describe their past selves as complete strangers in another place with no ties to this new life. And if they can remember specific places, that's when it's possible to go to said place, you know, and do some digging and investigate to see if somebody did actually live there. That matches the rest of the details that the child is given. And if the details do match, DOPS considers it a solved case.
Whoa.
And if the child gives details that cannot be verified, then that's when the case is considered unsolved. And 2/3 of their cases are considered solved.
Whoa.
That's pretty, like, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah. 70% of the deaths reported are unnatural. So, like, combat, murder, suicide, accidents, stuff like that. For kids that die violently, many of them are born with birthmarks or mutations that match the fatal injury of the supposed reincarnated person. And we were talking to our boss about this the other day. Like,
yeah, literally.
And Ian thought this was super interesting. So he spent years collecting these cases and eventually wrote a book called Reincarnation on Biology with all of these findings.
Wow.
And there are a couple of findings that I wanted to show you. So, in a village in northern India in the 1970s, there was a small boy that lost his fingers and his right hand to this solder machine. And shortly after that, the child died. And then in a neighboring village, a boy was born that claimed memories of the dead child's life. So he was like, that was me. Yeah.
Where was this?
In India, northern India. And here's a little clip of that.
There was other evidence too. Lekpal's case was investigated by Dr. Stevenson and the Indian parapsychologist Dr. Satvant Pasricha.
यहाँ पैदा हुई थोड़े कुछ बाद जब छोटे छोटे थे तब थोड़ा याद करो करते थे फिर इलाज चलते रहो जैसे पिताजी ने मोको ऐसे इन शराब गांजा पियो करते थे उनने ऐसे मशीन फिराई दी सो हाथ वो कटियो हम तो वहीं खड़े रह गए वो गरियां पांच उनके सामने गिरी जान तब एकदम भड़बड़ाने भी सब कि लला को हाथ कटियो तब ऐसा।
तब तुम्हारा नाम क्या था?
हुक्म सिंह।
इस पे नाम लिखना जरा फिर से एक बार। Being born with missing fingers is very rare, and the corresponding feature in the previous personality adds to its importance. The same fingers were chopped off. Also, there was no family history of missing fingers, and there was no such case in the whole of village.
Wow.
I know. That's crazy, right?
That's crazy.
Another young boy, he recalls being a man in his past life that was killed with a gunshot to his head.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he remembers the bullet coming from the right side, and the boy was born with his left side of his face underdeveloped, and his right ear was kind of like closed on into itself.
What?
And I'll show you a clip of that.
This boy was born without a right ear, but with memories of the life of a man who was shot in the head.
He remembered the previous life of a peasant farmer, this was in Turkey, who went to sleep at the end of the day in a pasture, and a neighbor came along hunting rabbits, and in the twilight mistook this sleeping peasant for a rabbit and shot him with a shotgun at point-blank range. We were able to go to the government hospital where the wounded man had been taken, and there we found a report showing that he died about 10 days later of hemorrhage in the brain. And this boy had memories of this man's life and his death.
What?
Crazy, right?
That's so wild.
I know. Ian also listed 18 cases of children who all had 2 birthmarks that matched the entrance and the exit wound where they got shot in their previous life. Yeah. And Jim Tucker decided to focus on American cases because there isn't as much of like a cultural influence that might impact these cases in the West. And then he also thought that it might make it harder to dismiss them by Americans if they realize that the cases are also happening here, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, there's a couple of cases that I want to talk about. The first is of James Leninger. This little boy lived in Louisiana with his Christian parents, Bruce and Andrea. They eventually wrote a book about their experience with this. And James was a boy who talked about being killed as a pilot that fought in World War II. And the pilot was later identified as someone that actually had fought in World War II. And it was bizarre for the parents because they did not believe in reincarnation, like at all, especially the dad. It all started when James was 2 years old and his dad took him on a trip to an airplane museum. James was fascinated by it all. He was fascinated by the World War II exhibit. He didn't want to leave. They were walking around and he just kept wanting to go back to the World War II exhibit, and eventually his dad was like, okay, let's go back. And they ended up spending like 3 hours there. Like, James was just mesmerized. A couple of months later, he started having these terrible nightmares where he would start screaming and kicking his legs and yelling, "Airplane crashing on fire, little man can't get out." I know.
What?
And so the parents from there, they reached out to DOPS, and Jim went to their house and spent some time talking to them and everything. And after that, he visited with James' aunt, who the family was pretty close to, and she was telling him how it was really intense for her to watch James have these nightmares because it really seemed like somebody fighting for their lives. Like, it was so intense for James when he had these nightmares.
That's so sad.
I know. And during the day, he would take his toy airplane and smash it down into the coffee table and say, "Airplane crash on fire," over and over and over.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. To the DOPS researchers, this very much seems like post-traumatic stress play, where if a child goes through something traumatic, they reenact the scene over and over through play.
Oh.
And kids will also reenact past lives' professions compulsively. So for James, he would not only play with airplanes, but he also took an old car seat and created a cockpit, like a command center in the plane.
What?
He created one in the closet of his dad's home office. So he would pretend to fly in his parachute and land in there. Yeah.
What?
I know.
That is so advanced. Like,
I know. For like a little 3-year-old?
Like, such an advanced thought process, yeah, for
I know.
a 3-year-old.
I know. And in a video of James when he was 3, he goes over a plane as if he's doing a pre-flight check.
What?
When he was 3 years old, yeah. Another time, his mom, Andrea, I was watching an interview with her, and she told ABC News, she was like, "I bought him a new toy plane," and she pointed out that it looked like there was a bomb, like, on the underside, and James corrected her and told her that it was a drop tank. And she was like, "I've never heard of a drop tank. I literally don't don't even know what that is. Like, how would he know what that is, you know?
Wow.
Little tiny baby.
That's absolutely wild.
I know. Let me start that over.
Okay.
The Lenningers wrote a letter to James Huston's sister, Anne Barron, about little James. James Huston is the guy.
Yeah.
And she ended up believing him too. She was like, the child was so convincing and coming up with all of these things that there's no way in the world that he could know.
What?
Yeah. And there is a noted skeptic in this story, Paul Kurtz of the State University of New York at Buffalo, who is the director of an organization that investigates paranormal phenomena. He thinks that the parents are self-deceived. He thinks that, quote, they're fascinated by the mysterious and they build up a fairy tale.
What?
Which, like, okay, like, okay.
Also, it's like, what about that is a fairy tale? Like, your kid being traumatized and reliving post-traumatic stress disorder as a 3-year-old?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing about that that's exciting.
No.
You know? It's just sad.
It's just sad for a kid to have to deal with.
Yeah.
Why would the parents want that?
Yeah. What a loser.
Paul, if you're watching this, just kidding. His parents talked to James a lot about his experience after his 2nd birthday, and James told them that he was in this plane when it crashed into a fire, and that he was shot down by the Japanese military they were fighting, and that he flew a Corsair. And a Corsair is a plane. You know what a Corsair?
Oh, sorry,
they don't know what a Corsair is. They don't know. A Corsair is a special plane developed during World War II.
That's my favorite plane.
Is it your favorite
That's
plane?
my favorite plane.
Oh my god, I didn't know that about you.
It was my dad's favorite plane.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's so
And
cute.
now it's my favorite plane.
Oh, that's cute.
That's sick.
I know. After this case became public, critics thought that... So he went to the space museum, or the airplane museum. He saw this plane, and then he created a story around it. And if you go to the museum's website, there is a Corsair on there, but James' dad said that there wasn't one at the time when they went.
Oh.
And so Jim looked into it and found out that the dad was right. There had been a Corsair there, but it crashed at a public air show the year before they visited, and they didn't get a replacement for 3 years after that. So boom, he wasn't lying. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And James also said that he flew off of a boat. And they asked him, what was the name of the boat? And he told them Natoma. And his dad was like, that sounds Japanese to me. And James was like, no, it was American. and so after that conversation, the dad went and he did some research and found out some information on the USS Natoma Bay. And the article stated that there was, in fact, an aircraft carrier boat thing called USS Natoma Bay that was stationed in the Pacific during World War II. And here's a picture of it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm. And his parents would always ask him who he was during all of this, and he either would just say James or they would just say me or James. They didn't really think much of that. And they also asked him who else was there, and he said Jack Larson. And
what?
This happened when he was 2. When he was 2.5, his dad bought a book about Iwo Jima, which was an island in Japan where there was a battle between the U.S. Marines and the Imperial Army of Japan. The dad was going to give the book to his dad, James's grandpa, and he was just sitting there flipping through the book one day when James came into the room, and he sat in his dad's lap, and they were looking through the book together, and then they came across a map of Iwo Jima, and James pointed to it, and he said, that is where my plane got shot down, Daddy. I know.
Wow.
And his dad was like, what the heck? Like, why is my child talking like this? Like, how, like, what, you know?
Yeah.
And he learned then that the Natoma Bay was involved in the Iwo Jima battle. And James drew hundreds of pictures of airplanes and battle scenes, and he would always sign them James 3. And they asked him, why James 3? Because you're 3 years old? And he would say, no, because I'm James 3, the third James. And he continued signing his pictures James 3 up until he was 4. Yeah, here is a video about that.
And there were drawings, too, James, that you would make that sort of indicated historic truth, correct? We have some images of those that we can put up. But it was how you would sign them, right? That would give everyone a little bit more information.
That was one of our first clues. He started doing the drawings, and it was almost a pathological process. He would put the planes and the ships, and then he would almost be acting out a battle. He would be shooting and firing. And he started signing the drawings James 3, and it was right when he was 3 years old. He couldn't even sign his name yet. He didn't know how to write his name, which I think people don't realize, that when you're 3, you don't know how to write your name yet.
Exactly.
But
does it show a picture of his face? The little boy?
Here's a picture.
Oh my goodness.
With all of the talk about this, his parents did begin to wonder if James really was talking about a past life. When he was 4.5, his dad went to a Natoma Bay reunion where he learned that there had been a Jack Larson, and he was looking for Jack among the people that died, but he found out that Jack Larson was alive. Yeah. And so he went to visit him and learned that he was on the Natoma Bay ship during the Iwo Jima battle.
What?
And he also learned that there was only one American pilot killed during this battle, and he was a 21-year-old pilot from Pennsylvania named James Houston. So this meant, I think I said Huston earlier, it's James Houston. So this meant that if baby James was telling the truth about being another James in his previous life, that it had to be this one. And here's a picture of him.
Oh my gosh, so handsome.
I know. He's got a nice smile. So there's a lot of similarities between what baby James was saying and James Houston's previous life, like him signing his drawings like James 3.
Yeah.
Because James Houston was James Jr., so it would make little James the third.
Oh.
And James said that he flew off the Natoma. James flew off the Natoma Bay. Little James said he flew a Corsair. James Houston flew a Corsair. Little James said that he was shot down by Japanese fighters and he died at Iwo Jima. That's what happened to James Houston. He said Jack Larson was there. Jack Larson was a pilot next to Houston's. So it's like everything that Jack said about his previous life matched up. And there's just no way that he would know all of this.
Yeah.
Here's another little clip.
Well, I don't have the nightmares anymore.
Okay.
Those passed after the we went to Chichijima and reconciled the whole problem with James Houston. I got to say goodbye, and I guess I kind of just made that spiritual just release from James Houston, and so I don't have the nightmares anymore.
Wow. Crazy, right?
That's wild.
I know. Houston's sister sent James 2 prized possessions, a bust of George Washington and a model of a Corsair aircraft, and they were among the personal effects of James Houston sent home after the war. So little James has them. I know. When asked if the idea that James may have been someone else, if that changed his mom or dad's feelings about their son, Bruce said, "It doesn't change how we think. I don't look at him and say, that's not my boy. That is my boy."
That's good.
I know. James, so he was like a Boy Scout when he was little, and then when he graduated high school, he joined the Navy. And here's a picture of him as an adult.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
That's so wild.
The next case I want to talk about is about a little baby boy named Ryan. So one day, DOPS gets a letter from this mom in Oklahoma. She's asking them for help. And she says that they're just regular old people. She works for the Clark County office. And their 5-year-old Ryan, he has spent the last year talking about a past life in Hollywood. And he would cry and beg his mom to take him home back to Hollywood. And he talked about having this like extravagant life in Hollywood. And she was trying to figure out how to help him, and so she finally went to the library. She checked out a few books about Hollywood. They were flipping through the books together one day when they came across a picture from an old movie called Night After Night. Ryan pointed to a guy in the picture and was like, "Mama, that's me. I found me." And the person that he was pointing to was an extra with no lines. Ryan's mom was like, "Who is this?" She couldn't figure it out, so that's when she reached out to DOPS to help her.
Wow.
And here's a little clip of that. It's really cute.
She turns to a page and I say, "That's me. That's who I was."
That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't he so cute?
He's so cute.
And his mom has the southern accent, and you can kind of hear it in him too, and it's so cute. I love that.
What a cutie.
So Jim decided to go visit Ryan and his parents to hear their story, and afterward Ryan's mother emailed Jim, sometimes multiple times a day, just telling him everything that Ryan was saying.
Wow.
About his past life. And Jim found a Hollywood archivist, and together they found out who this guy was. So the guy Ryan was talking about was named Marty Martin.
Wow.
It's this guy right here.
Wow. Handsome.
After that, Jim watched the movie again to make sure that they had the right guy, and he later talked to Marty Martin's family and was able to confirm that that was Marty Martin in the film. And Jim thought it was unlikely that Marty would have the type of life that Ryan described, because Ryan talked about this like extravagant life, you know.
Wow.
But he did in fact lead a pretty extravagant life. Marty Martin did. Yeah.
Wow.
Ryan said that he danced on stage in New York while Marty Martin danced on Broadway.
Wow.
Ryan said that he went to Hollywood and worked in the movies, which Marty Martin did. He mostly danced in movies.
Wow.
I know. Ryan said that he had worked at an agency. Marty Martin had a successful talent agency.
Wow.
And Ryan said that he saw the world from big boats, and he would talk about how he went to Paris. Well, sure enough, Marty Martin and his wife went on the Queen Mary to Europe and visited Paris.
Wow.
Ryan said that he had a big house with a swimming pool. Pans out. Marty did.
Wow.
And yeah, Ryan also said that he didn't know why God would let you get to 61 and then make you come back as a baby. And so Martin died in 1964, and his death certificate said that he was 59 when he died. And so it seemed that there was finally something that Ryan was wrong about.
Solidified.
No, because he said that he was 61.
Oh.
And the death certificate says that he was 59.
Huh.
And so they were like, okay. So then Jim went to talk to Marty Martin's dad and his stepson, and he found out that Marty was actually 61 when he died. The death certificate was wrong.
What?
So Ryan was right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That detail is so specific.
I know. How could he have known that? This was just like an extra in Hollywood.
Wow.
I
That's
know.
amazing.
Incredible. Through researching the archives and talking to Marty Martin's daughter, DOPS was able to determine that over 50 of Ryan's statements matched Marty's life.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. They also had a meeting with Ryan and Marty Martin's daughter, and it was super awkward. Ryan just kind of felt uncomfortable. And so after that, they took him to where the talent agency used to be, the building where it was. And after that trip, he started wearing what he called his agent glasses. So when Marty Martin was older, he would wear these thick black-rimmed glasses. And so Ryan got these glasses, like those 3D glasses you get at the movies, and he wore them around everywhere. He called them his agent glasses. Here's a picture of him with his little glasses.
Oh my goodness. Why was it awkward with the daughter?
I don't know. I was thinking about that too, and I think these are all really big, like, adult emotions and memories, you know, that a child is experiencing. And then to see someone that he was so close to in his past life, like his daughter, he probably didn't have, like, the emotional capacity. I don't know. That's just my guess. But,
like, emotional intelligence to cope with that type of feeling.
Yeah.
Or to really understand it or grasp it.
Yeah, like, what is a child supposed to do with that? Like, hi, daughter, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Here's a picture of Dr. Tucker and the mama and the baby.
Oh my God.
Aren't they so precious? He's so cute.
I love him.
I know. Ryan is now 18, and the last article that I could find about him was from 2 years ago, and it stated that he was doing well, that he's currently focused on school and friends and his family, and so I hope he's doing well. He seems like a little cutie baby boy.
Oh my gosh, that's adorable.
And the last story that I want to talk about is about Gus Taylor.
Okay.
Here's a picture of him as a baby and his dad. And his dad kind of looks like your dad.
Oh my gosh, he does.
Doesn't he?
Oh.
Got a big head.
Oh.
So Gus was born a year after his paternal grandfather died. So he never got to meet him. And his full name is August, and he was named after his grandpa. One day, Gus's dad was changing his diaper, and Gus says to his dad, you know, when I was your age, I used to change your diaper. And his dad was like, what the hell? And his parents thought it was weird. Neither of them believed in reincarnation, like, at all. But still, he continued talking about it. He would say things like, I used to be big, and I used to be grandpa. And yeah. And Kathy and Ron, his parents, they would talk about his grandpa, and they would refer to him as Grandpa Augie. And Gus would be like, you mean me? And he was very adamant about being like, no, that's literally me. Like, I am Grandpa Augie.
Oh my gosh, I don't know why, but that's so cute to me.
It's
I don't know why, but it's so cute to me.
It's cute.
It's so cute.
When Gus's grandmother died, his dad Ron went to her house to gather some stuff, you know, clean the house and stuff. Mm-hmm. And he came back with a bunch of family pictures that Gus had never seen. And Kathy was showing him an old school picture. He was like, can you find where Grandpa Augie was in this? And he ran his finger across the different faces, and then he pointed to his grandpa, and he was like, that's me. Or maybe he didn't say that's me, but he was able to easily identify his grandpa. And he was also able to recognize a picture of his grandfather's very first car that he ever owned.
Wow.
And here's a little video of that.
He also correctly identified this as the first car that his grandfather ever owned.
He showed me a picture, and then I said, that was my first car. And then my dad was like, that's weird, because the car was Grandpa Augie's first car. So it was all scary.
Oh, he's so cute.
He's adorable. Gus would also talk about how at the end of his life, his wife would always make milkshakes for him, and she would make them in a food processor rather than a blender, which ended up being true. That was like a true fact.
Oh.
And Kathy and Ron were intrigued with Gus knowing all of this, so they would ask him about it. And one night, Kathy asks him, when you were Grandpa Augie, did you ever have any brothers or sisters? And he was like, yeah, I had a sister, but she died. it kind of caught her off guard because she was like, I don't think there are any deaths in the family, you know? And Gus told her, yeah, she turned into a fish. She died. Some bad guys.
What?
And his parents were flabbergasted because what had happened was he did have a sister. Grandpa Augie did have a sister who was murdered and she was dumped in the San Francisco Bay.
Wow.
Yeah. They never talked about this in front of him. And like his dad hardly ever even talked about it like with his own adult family members. Like it was just not something that they talked about, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. And for Kathy, like Gus talking about being his grandfather reborn went against everything she believed in. She was a Southern Baptist. Her father was a minister. Like this is not something that was taught to her at all, you know?
Wow.
And so it was hard for her to like believe in it, you know? Here's a little clip of that.
This one day he sort of popped up and looked at me and said, you know, Mom, when we die, we get to come back. And he looked at me again and he said, I used to be big and now I'm a kid again. And he was just very excited about this.
Wow.
That case is what DOPS considers a same family case, where the child claims to be a deceased family member reincarnated. And obviously it's hard to say for sure, like, you know, because it's like the kid could have heard details, you know, could have built a whole story around it, yada yada yada. I don't think that was the case for Gus's story.
No.
And currently DOPS is doing a study with adults that they interviewed as children. And for a lot of them, although it was a hard experience as a kid and their parents and stuff, a lot of them say that they look back on it as a positive experience. And a lot of them say that it gave them this appreciation for spirituality and gave them like a sense of spirituality, you know?
Aww, that's so good.
I know. For many people and probably a lot of scientists, reincarnation will probably always be this fantasy that can never be proven.
Yeah.
For Jim, success doesn't mean persuading the non-believers to believe in reincarnation, but rather encouraging people to consider the meaning of consciousness and how it might survive our deaths.
I love that.
I know.
That's so beautiful.
I know. He also said while doing a Q&A after one of his online seminars with UVA, he was asked, do people ever give you crap on campus or maybe from other science professors or whatever? And he said that nobody gives him crap about it at all. He was like, I'm sure there are people that don't believe in what I'm doing and think I'm wasting my time, but people have never gone up to him and said that.
Oh,
and
that's good.
If anything, people are interested in what he's doing at UVA and at other universities. He went to this, whatchamacallit, pediatrics unit for something. I think he gave a talk there or something, and afterwards one of the nurses that works there came up to him and she was like, it basically telling him how validating it was for her listening to him talk about all of this, because she was like, I've heard of kids talking about stuff like that, but I've never discussed this with any of my peers for fear of them thinking that I'm crazy, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
I know. He said, I believe in the possibility of reincarnation, which is different from saying that I believe in reincarnation. I do think these cases require an explanation that is out of the ordinary, although that certainly doesn't mean that we all reincarnate. Memories of past lives are not very common, so I don't expect that, he said when he was asked if he thinks that in the future there will be a child that recalls his own memories as their own. But he said, I do hope that there's some continuation after death for me and for all of us. And that is the end of my story.
That was so good.
Thank you.
I loved it.
Thank you.
You always make me cry on. You've said them so beautifully.
Thank you.
I feel like mine are always like, and then they died. You know?
He went to prison. No, I love your stories. We're going to do our makeup, but we'll be right back.
In time with the drip from my sink, and she drags a finger to follow my spine. She gets lost on her way.
Are you gonna drink that?
No.
I'll drink it. Yeah. Like a real man.
Okay. Hey, we're back.
Hi.
I hope you enjoyed this story.
I know I did.
Thanks, you.
That was amazing. You're welcome.
If you believe in reincarnation or don't, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Like, if you have any stories Like, I love hearing about that. Like, people, you know, that had family members or stuff like that. Like, that's so cool.
Yes.
So share your stories with us.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. And be on the lookout for the next one.
Yeah, and if you love watching these, you could always turn your notifications on.
Subscribe it, like it.
Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram.
Yeah.
And TikTok. Thank you for being here. Have a good day.
If you ever need a friend, just call me and I'll pretend. I will tell you what you wanna hear. You're beautiful, I believe in you. Whisper in your ear.
She turns to a page and I say, that's me. That's who I was.
That's me.
Yeah.
But the